All right. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to be talking about COIL today, so bridging borders and kind of exploring the COIL journey that I have been on with my colleagues, Dr. Mingjung So and Josh McCowan. So I am Dr. Jessica Harris. I'm from the Department of Health Promotion and Wellness, and I've been doing COIL now for I think about 4 years. So my colleague and mentor, Dr. So, kind of pulled me on an experience she created, and from there we've been kind of traveling virtually, bridging borders with the Hague University of the Netherlands. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. So some things that I want to kind of discuss with all of you today is really the role of COIL in global engagement and what I've found from the experience. Also kind of exploring strategies of an effective COIL design if you're interested in, moving ahead and putting that into your classroom. And some lessons learned from a successful COIL collaboration, this 6-year journey that we've had, and also the impact we've seen on COIL student learning outcomes, but also what research and other, global explorations and engagements have seen as well when it comes to how it impacts student learning outcomes. So what is COIL? So COIL is known as Collaborative Online International Learning. It integrates online interaction with international partners and kind of incorporates that into coursework. So it's also a pedagogy really that kind of helps to create an environment and foster the development of intercultural competence, skills, and also really helps with technology connecting classrooms to two different distinct geographical locations. So really, COIL collaborations, as we see here with this diagram, they're developed by partnering professors from different institutions, different countries, who really want to enrich their courses with student interaction and collaborative learning. So professors work together to design and implement the COIL collaboration, allowing experiences to really be customized to meet the needs of any class. And it takes planning and careful attention, to design this. SUNY has, been kind of a leader in the collaborative online international learning with our COIL Center, things like that. And ultimately, it promotes that global engagement. It develops cultural awareness. It gives students the opportunity to have virtual collaborations and also into just interdisciplinary learning. So here you have Course A, which is from one institution that may speak one language in a same discipline, or it could be a different discipline that then collaborates with another institution that may speak a different language. And also they could also have the same discipline or a different discipline. And they're both given credit, the students, but professors are collaborating and planning and designing the course. Students are collaborating with discussions and projects. And the biggest thing about COIL that I have found is, it's a way for students to study abroad without the cost and being able to have it already embedded in their course, which really helps with that global engagement. Particularly, I teach in health promotion and wellness, so it is very important, I think, for our students in my discipline because this helps them kind of gain an understanding of different populations because that is what they'll do in their careers moving forward, and also helping our students realize that, they may kind of start careers or be in careers where they never meet their colleagues. It may be completely virtual. So that is something that I think is important with our students. So how COIL promotes global engagement. So cultural awareness, interdisciplinary collaboration, skill development, and inclusive accessibility. Cultural awareness really exposes students to diverse perspectives. So they are virtually collaborating with a classroom from a different country. They may speak a different language, and it encourages teamwork across borders and disciplines. So that interdisciplinary collaboration. And really with that skill development, it's enhancing, design literacy, or excuse me, digital literacy, intercultural communication, and problem solving. And with inclusive accessibility, it's really providing global experiences without that cost of travel. So I have had students enrolled, in my COIL courses that had mentioned they would never be able to afford to study abroad, and they felt like they still got that experience. So, the impacts on students we've seen, empathy being built, understanding global issues. We continued this COIL collaboration that we've done for 6 years throughout the pandemic. So it was very interesting to see the impact that it had on the students in that regard. Institutionally, it strengthens our international partnerships. We've had many other institutions reach out to us as of lately, to have partnerships in this COIL experience, and also promoting, diversity and inclusion into our curriculum design, which is really important, as an institution. So globalization in education. So international education trends, we're seeing a lot of mobility and technology use. We're seeing things with AI, lots of different things where we need students to have that digital literacy. In regards to global learning, intercultural understanding through COIL, we're seeing a lot more of that globalization in education and how people are integrating that into their classrooms, into their coursework. And really, it does take willing faculty, co-teaching, and co-constructing learning with other partners. So there is that piece where you are looking to find, collaborators, other partners to take action and kind of create a course, design a course with you, which can be the most difficult part for people when it comes to COIL is finding that partnership. And a lot of ways that I know my colleague has done that is through, international conferences and also specific conferences through SUNY related to COIL. Technology, memorandums of agreement, costs and ways to maximize innovation. Right now, Josh is working with the Netherlands on getting a memorandum of understanding, with that institution because we've been doing this for 6 years. So having that partnership with them and having that on paper, kind of just to maximize innovation, things like that. There's a lot of institutions that are going that route and making these collaborations with international partners, with memorandums of agreements and things like that. So designing a COIL project. So what does it take to actually design one? So the first things you want to ask yourself is what qualities make a course a good candidate for COIL, right? So thinking about your courses, what would be a course that would be a great way for you to integrate these COIL experiences with an international partnership? What is your readiness as an instructor to teach in a technologically enhanced way? So there is a lot of technology that you're using. There's virtual meetings, there's all class meetings, those types of things when designing that COIL course. And what does the availability of your institutional support look like for you? Interestingly enough, we don't need anything really other than Brightspace from our institution at this point with COIL. So we found ways where it's been pretty easy for us to continue this journey of COIL because both institutions use Brightspace. Before we had Brightspace and we had Blackboard, so there was a little difference there, and we did have our curriculum designers help us in kind of creating a shell for both institutions. But it actually works out even better now, knowing that we have the same learning management system. But in regards to technology, after the pandemic, even before the pandemic, using things like Zoom or Skype or those ways are pretty easy to start to use technology to have those discussions. And now this is something that really, when we talk about digital literacy for our students, this is something most likely they'll see in their careers. So having that skill and kind of refining that is very important. But if you are thinking about doing COIL, determining, what your content's going to be and what are your institutional resources. Do you have the backing? Are you able to produce this course in an effective way for your campus? So some key steps for COIL design. So when you take a look at kind of a COIL experience and kind of how you're going through the process of planning it, you're identifying an institutional partner. Again, I said this is one of kind of the hardest steps in the design process. A lot of people want to do COIL, but they don't know how to make those connections. Reaching out to institutions such as The Hague. For example, The Hague is an institution where they require COIL courses at all levels for their students. There are some international schools where this is a part of their curriculum. It's a great way to kind of tap into those schools. I know there's some other schools in Germany that we're looking at with that as well. But identifying those mutual goals, if it's a campus that, values COIL like we do, there's a great way to make a partnership there. Going to those international conferences and just meeting people is another great way to really get out there and look for those international partners. And that's a great way to look at it. Also, taking a look at the literature that's already published, the people that are already doing it internationally and maybe reaching out to them that way is a great way to kind of find those international partners or get yourself into the waters of that and seeing what the possibility would look like. From there, really identifying what your mutual goals are in regards to how you want the course to run. For a moment, my colleague was diving into Korea and what we could do with Korea. However, their kind of mutual goals were different than what we do here at Oswego. They were more research based and they were more research focused on, developing a manuscript, the students, during that experience, which would be great. However, we were looking more at these virtual collaborations that would have them engaged and doing things in that realm, and it was a little bit different for them. So making sure that you do find a partner that has those mutual goals and can align with the learning objectives and outcomes that you're looking for. And the second step, aligning project objectives with your course learning goals. So we all have our learning outcomes for our specific courses, but aligning and kind of designing what activities are you going to be doing for this COIL project? How are they going to align with your overall course learning goals? It fits very well for us here at SUNY Oswego because in our health promotion course 448 is program planning. We're able to really kind of align what we're doing with the COIL project with that experiential learning there. But thinking about what kind of project you're doing and how that could align, and is it going to be the right fit for that course that you're looking at? Incorporating synchronous and asynchronous collaboration activities. I think this is very important with the COIL design. I'm going to be talking a little bit about my 6-year journey with the COIL experience and what we've done, but incorporating those virtual collaboration activities is very important. We've had, as a group, we've had some synchronous sessions where we've had one classroom of students were in the class, we had other students that were virtual. And we've done it that way. We've also had every student, when they do the COIL experience, they're partnered with a student from The Hague, and they are meeting several times throughout the semester, virtually collaborating on specific assignments that we've created in number 2 for that project. In step 4, you're then thinking about what type of technology you are going to use to facilitate any meetings within the courses. Zoom, Google Workspace, what is that going to look like? It's also very important to note that there are some institutions that use Microsoft Outlook versus Google and Gmail and those types of things, which we ran into with The Hague, and having to make sure that our post-test surveys weren't using Google, those types of things. So there's things to think about with the technology they use and what's going to be best and most appropriate in the design. 5, really preparing students for cross-cultural collaboration. I think this aligns with number 2. When you're thinking about what that project is, what are you actually going to be doing that's going to enhance and prepare students in regards to their cultural awareness, their cultural sensitivity? Why is this a global experience? So yes, anybody can do COIL, but thinking at the real root of why you're doing this is really important. And I think for our major and our students, knowing that as health educators, we're preparing them to go out into various populations, they need to have that cultural competency and that understanding of how to deal with different populations. And this is really for any student in any discipline. This is what's going to help them get careers. This is what's going to help them professionally. So really thinking strategically and thoughtfully about how you're going to integrate that into this project is really important. And then lastly, evaluating and reflecting on the overall outcomes of the collaboration, and also what the students' feedback and impact was. So every time we do a COIL experience, we get together and reflect as faculty and instructors, and we also look back at the data we've collected from our students. But really, these are kind of the core steps in this COIL design if you're thinking about getting started and kind of designing an effective experience. So the COIL research model, this is one that we use. There's many out there, but it's an evidence-based process. So kind of like those 6 steps, this is what we looked at when how we wanted to start the process and create the plan and implement the project. We really use this COIL research model, where first you're developing that COIL partnership with the institutions, with those faculty members. We start having discussions about aligning course project outcomes. We start to think about how we're going to assign those assignments and projects. And also, we review student progress and feedback throughout that course, administering surveys to analyze outcomes and datas. So, really, kind of this iterative process of kind of going around and coming back to that partnership at the end and starting again about refinements and what we can do in the future moving forward with the COIL experiences. So this is kind of the basic research, evidence-based research process and model that we kind of adopted in the COIL experience for us. There are many different ones out there, but this is kind of the core. Some other things to note when thinking about how to kind of design one and it being effective is really technology and cost effectiveness. So, existing hardware and software that's available on your campus or the partner campus, what are the technologies being used? We lucked out having an institution that actually has Brightspace as well, so it worked out really well. But we were with them when we both had 2 different learning management systems. And like I said, in regards to the technology, our institution, I was able to reach out to Kathy Dutton and Doug Hempfield, and they were able to collaborate and make sure that we had a shell in Blackboard, where we had Blackboard that was for both institutions. So we had all the students enrolled in this one shell. Now we don't have to do that because we both have Brightspace, and we've also kind of kept it separate for each of the courses because we did find through some feedback that that was a little difficult for students to remember to log into a different system and stuff. But you'll find out what works best for you. But if you have computers, you have internet access on campus, you really have the existing hardware and software to do this. And if you have Zoom and those types of things. So students don't need to make a huge commitment financially for a COIL experience. That's what I think is the great thing about it. In terms of time compared to their peers who study abroad, in the sense that, this is part of their course. It's integrated into the course. It's integrated into the assignments that they're doing. They already have Zoom. They're using those types of materials, so they're able to really have this study abroad experience without actually traveling, which shows kind of the equitability when it comes to giving students, opportunities that they may not have otherwise. So instead of the course, taken at their current institution, using existing technology for communication collaboration, this really adds no additional cost for the student. We don't charge them extra for a COIL course. They're given the opportunity for it to be a course that they can, register for in regards to their major, etc. And that's kind of how we've implemented it. So some components of a COIL model. So if you look kind of at the progression here, and when I say COIL model, this is kind of how some people break it down. They have an overall COIL project, and then there's modules that students do throughout the semester with both of their partners in the institution. So when we look at something like, effective COIL collaborations, we're looking at the team building phase. We're looking at comparative discussions, collaboration, and then presentation of the students' work. So when we think of the team building stage, it's really the introductions. The students need to be well aware of what the COIL collaboration is, what they're being asked to do, and they need to meet their partners. They need to meet the other institution instructors and have kind of that first global experience, which is something we do every semester. When we do it in the spring, we have a virtual kickoff where we have discussions virtually with both classrooms talking about what the experience is, also introducing them to the different cultures of the Netherlands and also the United States so they can really get a lay of the land. We really then go over what the project is and what the assignments are that they're going to be discussing, and then they meet their partners. So really in that team building phase, those introductions are really key. Also icebreakers, you'll see some of the examples that we've used over the 6-year course. Icebreakers, we use things such as Padlet and other types of of technology to really showcase who the students are, where they're from, those types of things. So you'll get to see that in a second as well. But really, this is designed to help students get to know and feel comfortable working with who they're going to work with throughout the semester. And again, it starts that process for them to feel more comfortable and have that self-efficacy and talking with other people from different cultures. Then we move into kind of comparative discussions. This is where we really want students to start having that reflective practice, that critical thinking, problem solving, where they're really being prepared for effective collaborative project work, but they're also diving deeper into global competency, cultural sensitivity, awareness, and particularly for the course that I have done, it also is centered around health promotion and nutrition and physical activity specifically. So in these comparative discussions, they're doing things like comparing, contrasting, they're reading research articles, they're having discussions, they're doing global recipe swaps, lots of different things in that regard. The collaboration piece should be imperative throughout the whole process of COIL and also throughout all of your modules. So you really are having them virtually collaborate on every assignment, everything that they're doing. This is where they're applying their knowledge. They're creating something together. So it's something that they're creating together in their virtual meetings. And they're having substantive discussions, around the topic of globalization, but also collaboration and how things may be different in that culture versus here, et cetera, and kind of how they can bond and talk about the differences about, those health issues or whatever the discipline is that you're in. And then lastly, that component is presentation of that work. How do you want them to kind of disseminate this knowledge and information they've created? Is it through, videos? Is it through, specific assignments, podcasts? What is it, right? So how are you going to have them present, their final reflections on the content and the module assignments that they've done and what those intercultural aspects are that they found through that collaboration? So thinking very thoughtfully about the actual assignments and activities that you're going to have in the course, making sure that there's team building, there's comparative discussions, there's that collaboration and presentation of work. Normally, when you think of the COIL project, it's about 5 to 14 weeks. So for us, it's the full spring semester. So it's right around that, but you could make it shorter in your classes, longer. But normally you want to give them significant time to work together throughout their process. So creating the course. So about 8 weeks before the semester starts, you really want to start your planning. And it may be not 8 weeks, it could be a little bit sooner, whatever's working for you and your international partners. But you want to start collaborating with the faculty member of, the institution you're working with, creating a syllabus, right? What are your objectives? What's the expectations of the workload? The due dates for assignments? Is there points assigned for both institutions? Who's grading the work? What is the grading going to look like? How are you going to create the groups, the student teams, the formations? What types of projects are you looking at? Who's going to be the lead faculty? Assessment tools? What are the overall expectations? All of this is really key in setting the foundation for a good and effective COIL design, but also very important for that very first kickoff meeting so that students understand exactly what they need to do in this experience and how it's also going to benefit them in the future. So really kind of looking at letting them know what the positive outcomes are and putting that in all the work that we do together as faculty. So also, we do other meetings that take place 3 to 2 weeks before the semester, finalizing syllabi, discussing grade distributions, assigning milestones, making sure that the LMS system, the joint LMS system that you're using for submissions is accurate and working. So a lot of preparation goes into that prior to, the kickoff meeting that you have with the other institution. So, what does it look like when it all comes to fruition? So, the 6 year journey that I have been on in regards to, COIL has really been something that we've created called Health Promotion Across Borders. We've been collaborating for 6 years with the Hague University in the Netherlands of Applied Sciences, and they've been collaborating with us here at SUNY Oswego for 6 years. And in this collaboration with the Hague University, the students are particularly from the nutrition and dietetics program at the Hague. So there is an alignment when we go back to that very first slide where we talked about it could be the same discipline or a different discipline. They are pretty much in the same discipline. They're more specialized to nutrition and dietetics, but it's still content that our students know and deal with here at SUNY Oswego. So our story. So like I said, we've been on a 6-year COIL journey. We've done this for 6 years every spring semester. We've done it in our online 448 class while our face-to-face 448 class also participates. So it's been a spring journey where we've had participants here from SUNY Oswego in the United States collaborate with students from the Netherlands at the Hague University of Applied Sciences, particularly in nutrition and dietetics. We've covered topics over the 6 years such as physical activity, nutrition, mental health, COVID-19 pandemic. We've done a lot of different things. This past spring, we did something known as the Global Wellness Challenge, and I'll take you to that little slide here so you can see. Now, with the Global Wellness Challenge, we tried something a little bit different. We tried social media this time. And with social media, we wanted the students to really kind of put out their information using social media, making it a little bit more fun for them. We decided as the instructors that we would use one social media platform that we knew our students used, and we were going to use Instagram. So we had them using Instagram. They created group Instagrams. We had a faculty Instagram, and they were posting all of their assignments to that Instagram. And we made it a little global wellness challenge because there was going to be one collaborative group that won a prize. And that prize was some SUNY Oswego drawstring bags from the Health Promotion and Wellness. And from the Netherlands, they sent over their prizes, which were the Hague from the Netherlands, hot cup mugs, things like that. We also sent them some information about our institution and our department, our master's program, things like that for them to have. But it was a really creative assignment to the extent that students were really excited to participate and also have the opportunity to be the winning team, right? And they were using social media that they normally use on the day-to-day, process. And they also were using hashtags, right? So we had them use hashtags each time their partner post or they post the Instagram account. It was Team Netherlands or Team USA based on their affiliation, but ultimately Global Wellness Challenge. So we could see through the hashtags of what they did throughout that process. So when we talk about the COIL modules and what the COIL project is, overall, the COIL project was the Global Wellness Challenge, and each module was a specific assignment, which I'll get to as well. But some of the assignments that we did in the Global Wellness Project was assignment 1, an About Us social media video. That was one of the modules. Global Recipe Swap was another module. Active Lifestyle Challenge was another one. And then the final project was cultural communication. They actually had to provide translations and explore diversity of languages, which was really neat for them. And we gave them different types of translation tools they could use, etc. So ultimately, it was a really kind of fun experience for them. And we got some really great feedback from the students there. So those are some of the topics that we've covered in the past. It's been, things related to what was happening globally at the time, such as like the pandemic. That was one of the most interesting experiences with this COIL journey because students really enjoy the fact that they could ask, hey, what's going on in your culture right now, country, with the pandemic? What's happening? This is what's happening here. So we saw a lot of sharing and personalization that year when it was the COVID pandemic. Some program goals ultimately that we've seen and what we really prioritize is really enhancing students' knowledge, skills, but also their confidence in global health promotion. Again, that's the core of why we do it. We want our health educators to be able to go on to different countries and be successful and understand, digital literacy and also virtual collaborations. Because again, they may be in a career where they never meet their colleagues and they're completely virtual. So having those skills and that technology is extremely important in the process. So through this process we created through the social learning theory, we looked a little bit at, how our COIL collaboration provides that impact. What are the things we've done, as instructors throughout the years? And we really created a framework for collaborative program development and impact. So part of this, we've been doing research ourselves as instructors, and we've came up with a framework here that we found that's worked very well for us. For example, looking at common goals. Really this construct kind of emphasizes the importance of having shared objectives among all participants in the collaboration. For success, professors and students, need to have those aligned goals in the process, such as enhancing that cultural understanding, improving global health perspectives, those types of things. And actor motivation. This kind of construct we came up with in regards to, it's the driving force behind the engagement and active participation for collaboration. So really both professors and students need intrinsic and extrinsic motivation when it comes to this process and really, contributing meaningfully to the program. Actor readiness really refers to the preparedness of participants. This is both students and professors again. So for professors in particularly, this involves cultural awareness. For students, it does as well. Preparedness is really the ability to address any biases and communication challenges that may occur to make sure that the interactions are smooth. Self-efficacy related to Bandura's social cognitive theory. So this self-efficacy is really the student's belief, but also our belief as professors that we can really perform, this collaboration and also be successful, in our global competency. Communication routines, really looking at the collaboration, where we're geographically dispersed, the routines of using Zoom, Microsoft Team, what is that going to look like? Developing those personal relationships, like I mentioned, really finding that partnership. And then lastly, those organizational structures, really that, institutional support, what you're going to be doing in regards to your framework of the design, all of which these things helped in preparation for the COIL collaboration to then lead to impact, which we found was knowledge and skills, the outcome of overall global competency, and also successful program sustainment since we've been doing this journey for 6 years now. We also use a logic model in the process, what our inputs are, what our outputs are, really this strategic framework for planning, implementation, and evaluation of our program. So it kind of organized our processes of what were our resources, and then specifically what were our outputs, such as our activities, our online discussions, those types of things. And then lastly, our long-term, short-term impacts with our students. So this is kind of how we planned out that framework in our planning and implementation processes. So here you'll see the syllabi. So for health promotion across borders, we do create a separate syllabi from the class. So we do, like here at SUNY Oswego, we have our HSC 448 syllabus, but they're also doing a COIL project with this, The Hague University and their international Dutch student. So this is where they're able to see exactly everything that they need to do in regards to this project. And here it takes them right to, this is the full syllabus here, where we talk about kind of the learning objectives. They go through the specific process that they're looking at, the virtual meetings that they need to have, how to prepare for that meeting with their partners. So it's very, thoughtful in their process and the steps for the students in that way. So team building, that kind of first phase, that's a virtual all-class meeting with Dutch students. We do have them taking a pre-test survey, in that first meeting. That pre-test survey starts with specific questions of PISA, which is global competency survey that's been internationally refined. We do have them start to ask questions about self-efficacy. Do they think how they're doing, already in their global experiences? And we use this pre-test to then compare to the post-test that we do at the end to gather data. We also, in this team building phase, have them complete the Padlet activity, which this is kind of their first icebreaker. And if you haven't used Padlet before, there's wonderful different ways that you can use it. But this here was a way for them to actually see the full map, and they could actually click on a person and kind of see where that person's located. and what their name is, what their favorite food was, those types of things. So it was kind of cool to see where people are. So we had a lot of people, obviously, over here in the Netherlands, some from the UK, different areas, which was really cool to see too. So they could see where everybody was on the map with Padlet. So this was a great little quick icebreaker that they could do for the first activity. And this is done right through Padlet, which is free. You're able to use it, I think, up to so many posts within Padlet. And then their first assignment really was an About Us assignment, where they were getting to know each other and posting on social media kind of some questions and videos that they had about their future career path, collaborating. They both put their information into a 1 to 2 minute video that they then posted to their Instagram portal, along with the Brightspace portal. And what we did for this global wellness challenge was within the discussion board of their Brightspace, they shared their Instagram tag. So they were required to follow their peers and follow their Instagrams, like their Instagrams, those types of things. And over the years, we've kept the assignments very similar. So, for example, we've kept the About Us assignment, but it may have been not the Global Wellness Challenge year. So, for this example, was a PowerPoint from one of the different semesters where they collaborated on who they were. As you can see here, they shared their photos, the students from The Hague, who they are, going through. Then we have our student from SUNY Oswego. And again, these are shared with student permission. So those comparative discussions that I talked about before, the global recipe swap was one of them. This assignment here took students, into the aspect of wanting to promote that cultural exchange, enhance nutritional awareness, and they had to do some recipe research, and they had to do it from a tradition from their country and share the importance of that meal, the nutritional value, but also the cultural richness that that meal had on their region, which was really great. And then they also presented that, but also discussed the nutritional analysis of it. And we had students post that to their social media. So different recipes that maybe were very significant in their culture. So there was a lot of discussion that they had, in collaborating and making this 1 to 2 minute video with their taglines about the global recipes that they selected in that process. In the past, we also have done global and dietary physical activity needs assessment, where they're kind of comparing different research articles. So the U.S. students would read articles from from the Netherlands, and the Dutch students would read them from the U.S. They would do some reflecting, exploring similarities and differences, and predisposing, reinforcing factors, those types of things regarding the different countries. So those are some ways we've done the comparative discussions. Some of those collaborative discussions, we did an active lifestyle challenge assignment in one of the modules where they had to look at, themselves doing different physical activity experiences, or bringing videos or photos of themselves engaging in a physical activity within their culture, talking about that physical activity. So we've done stuff in that regard where they can really discuss exercise that they enjoy, but also sharing why it impacts their overall well-being. In the past, we also did more of a culture and environment collaboration, where they had to bring pictures and videos of where they're from, their culture, their environment, their lifestyle, and the target population of where they live, and share those photos and videos. And this has been really successful with students when they have their virtual partner meetings, really discussing the photos, and it gives the students a sense of what the Netherlands looks like, what USA looks like, and what it looks like in regards to these wellness and personal journeys in that regard. And some of the student examples there, oops, just went to the wrong one. So for the collaborative discussions, one of the student examples here, oops, I got the link messed up for that one, but several different examples that they've done in the past for those collaborative discussions based on those assignments. And then lastly, kind of the final presentation of their overall work, that cultural communication assignment that I mentioned, where they're actually discussing how to translate and do different things in regards to cultural exchange in the language. But we've had final COIL video projects in different times that we've done it over the 6 years, where they have to kind of put all those slides together. We've done a photo voice narrative piece where they're actually discussing photos and capturing images regarding mental health and putting those into their final project and videos. But we've had some great examples in the past. They actually do a full presentation of it. In the past, we've had them do it here. So the students will get together, as you can
Hi,
see
so
here,
my name is
and they'll
Jessica,
go through
and
the process talking about how they've collaborated, with their partners in the Netherlands. As you can see here, they'll have Netherlands. They talked about the physical guidelines, dietary guidelines, all the things they learned about environmental features, predisposing factors, just ways to compare and kind of collaborate in that full process. As you can see here, there's lots of different food items, different things they've shared to really kind of get to know the culture in that process. So then we also offer, part of the reflective practices is we want to know as faculty how things went, but also, specifically for students, what their feedback was. So when we look at the final student reflections, we kind of built those into Brightspace, looking at the COIL experience, how to help them learn from a new cultural perspective. So in our pre and post tests, we have quantitative data, but then we also did a thematic analysis of the final COIL project reflection to really see how it helped them, develop any cultural sensitivity or awareness that maybe they hadn't had before. So we use this kind of as our qualitative reflective piece where we got some good feedback from students. And it was part of, embedded into the assignment that they had for the COIL project. So some positive impacts that we have seen, but also the research also suggests from different institutions that have done this. Global competency, critical thinking, communication skills, teamwork, academic engagement. We've seen these kind of as our top things every semester that we've done it. Particularly student feedback, we've seen that the COIL component of this course, when asked if it introduced them to a new outlook, new ways of thinking, we've had high regard that they've agreed, both the Hague and Oswego. Also, the COIL component of the course introduced them to a new outlook, ways of thinking about how they relate to the world. We've seen high rates when we look at kind of the student feedback, but also their overall feedback in regards to the qualitative aspect and what they enjoyed, what they liked about it, those types of things. Some challenges and overall lessons learned in the process. Some of those challenges, of course, would be time zone differences. So I think we have like a 6-hour difference with The Hague. So managing those collaborations across time zones can be difficult for the students, but it's also something that they enjoy with the problem solving aspect because they understand that they do have a task, they do have an assignment. So virtually getting together, they have to kind of be strategic about when they can do that. Also, language barriers. Some students did struggle with translating ideas and communicating fluently in English. And it's very interesting too, because our partner from the Netherlands, that was a big piece of why they like to collaborate with us, is really trying to refine the students in their English, from The Hague. Cultural differences. So there's definitely variations in educational expectations, communication styles. Sometimes that could cause, misunderstandings, but it was actually really great to see the students kind of have those discussions and work out, what the misunderstanding was. And a lot of students did that very well, but it could be a challenge for some groups. And the overall lessons learned that we found, really flexibility, clear communication, clear guidelines, are very important in helping the students kind of overcome logistical challenges, whether it's with technology, what's expected of the assignments, and also continuous feedback, from not only the students, but also us as faculty to the students really helped in refining the overall program. Some references just for the literature. And I know that was a lot, so any questions? Thank you.
Oh, I have a question. I have a
Yes.
question. So are you doing so you're doing pre and post? Are you like collecting data? Like you're getting IRB approval every semester you teach?
Yes, we did. We've done that for the past. Yep. We have to
Right.
get it for this semester as well. Yep.
And then the other thing is when they're, I'm just thinking about, I teach about refugees and culture and all that kind of stuff too. So when you're talking about we're sharing American culture like food, I'm thinking, do we have American culture? Do we have American food? I mean, I don't know, because so many of our students, even at Oswego, are from different places and different cultures. We're multicultural. So I don't know, does that come up? And
Yeah,
same
so
same thing, I guess, in The Hague. I mean, I'm assuming that's kind of a multicultural
it is very much.
city in
Yeah.
Europe. So
Yeah, it's a general way for us to kind of give them the idea of what they need to do, but it does come out that, we've had students from Iran, Iraq,
yeah.
that go to The Hague. We've had students from, Jamaica, all kinds of places here also that come to SUNY Oswego. So they're sharing culture, right?
Okay.
Whether it's their culture,
Personally or yeah.
yes, right.
Okay.
So that's what makes it really interesting and really kind of this melting pot for them to really see, oh, okay. So it also gives them the idea that, things are similar in regard to they're coming to this institution from somewhere else as well. And more so The Hague, because it was so interesting to me. Also, a lot of great global competency for me as an instructor as well, because I was like, wow, a lot of the age range of the students that are there in The Hague, they're very young compared to when our students start. And they're from all over, right? They're from all over in regards to different countries, as opposed to different states here, right? So that was very interesting for me. But yes, very eye-opening for the students because they are sharing their own personal culture in that regard. And they do discuss that not as just the US, but I'm from here and this is something my family, in regards to their recipes, a lot of the students brought in something that was significant from their family, something maybe that was created or cooked often by their grandmother or something like that.
I don't want to, I don't know if there's other people who have questions, but I have another one. You said that they're sharing their personal Instagram with each other.
Not personal. They created a
Okay.
Instagram. Yep. So they created specifically an
For the
Instagram for the
class.
course. Yep.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then they shared their group Instagram. Yep. So not personal. No.
Okay. All right.
But it was very interesting. Something that came out of that was because we had a faculty one as well. I now have lots of students that found personal Instagram and they add you. So they created friendships, outside of just the class required use social media. I mean, they were using their Snapchats in regards to technology. They were using their TikTok accounts, and those were then ways that they just communicated as friends.
Mhm.
So building relationships is really key. And one thing that I want to mention out of that is probably the first year I did it, I had a student who became really good friends with their partner and actually visited years later in the Netherlands. So these experiences I think are really great, even just, outside of the academic part, but mental health wise, it really helps the students in building friendships in that regard too.
That's great.
Yeah.
So did a lot of the students in the Netherlands think they were going to be in New York City? Did they think that's like when you hear New York, did they think these students were all hanging out in New York City
Yes. So a
at
lot,
first?
yeah. So a lot of them, yeah. So and it's been kind of like an aha moment, I think, for Dutch students because they're like, okay, New York is much bigger and there's a whole other part of New York that's not the city. So there's been some cultural and educational pieces there as well. But similarly for the US students of what they think the Netherlands is, they think, okay, Amsterdam and like, but there's much, much more. And also learning more about, kind of transportation. That was one of the biggest things I think with our students was, wow, their schedules for the school is very different, but also they're very young and they bike everywhere. They bike everywhere, and wellness is so big, right? Just like in Australia or different cultures. And what the students were doing, they're very physically fit. They're doing things every day, and kind of seeing that was really cool. I noticed that most of our US students and the Dutch students, a lot of what they would post, of what they were doing outside of class was, wellness in regards to working out, yoga, those types of things. So they bonded a lot over things that they do. But it was very different than I think what originally our students may have thought the Netherlands was. So that was very interesting. And it's interesting because the Dutch students said, yeah, it's about what I thought it was, in regards to the US, in some aspects.
Neat. Thank you. This was great.
Yeah. But I think the biggest thing too, just for me, instead of the students too, was like I said, as a faculty member, it really opens your eyes to the global world in regards to education. And I've, made a really great friendship with Memon, who's a senior lecturer at The Hague, and we've done some really great collaborations in regards to what we wanted to do moving forward with COIL and those types of things. And also research that we've done. Tawny, who we started with, we did some research with her, and it's really kind of opened the door for my international, research and getting known in kind of the COIL area. It's just been a wonderful experience, and you meet some really great people and some really great institutions that are doing wonderful things in regards to globalization. And so it's been a great experience.
Excellent.
All right, I think that's our time. I will pop just really quickly, John, before they go in the chat. I'm just gonna pop the slide deck in there. So if you want a copy of this, and if you want to see the links or anything like that, they are to any of those assignments that I showed, you'll have access to those in the chat. So there you go. And thank you, everyone. If you do have any questions, I think everyone in here has my email. So,
Thank
You know
you.
where to find you.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.